can you clarify the new regulations and how do they limit the private security industry?
The limitation is based on, first of all, public interest, and they use consideration of public interest. They use based on risk assessment. They use based on necessity, and all of those kind of things. Mitigation, alternatives, those are the main restrictions. But there is no prohibition, so they still be able to use their weapons, but they must now justify, is it necessary for me to carry a rifle in a crash, for instance? What about accidental use of it? How many people will be hurt? Is it necessary? Do I have an alternative to use any other weapon that will less be, less lethal, less inflicting on public? And really, this does not encroach on anyone's private space. If you are able to pay your private security provider in your house to use any other weapon, so be it, as long as you don't use it in the public space. That's where we have a problem. We have to deal with the conduct, particularly not of the payer, but of the company that is providing that service. There is a code of conduct. The nation keeps on saying, can you account for firearms in the private security industry? Can you account for the abuse, the random use of these firearms? You can't do that. We need legal mechanisms to do that. This is the way to do it. In a democratic country, we live by the rule of law. The rule of law says the law must prohibit a particular conduct for us to be able to police it. And this is what we're doing. So we call on public to come forward and say, either they support, if they don't support, give us the alternatives, how best we can regulate. The issues of cost, the issues of the modalities of how it must be done, we can always talk about that. There are systems, there are online systems of reporting, there are declarations. Instead of you coming to us to apply, you can declare that this person is mentally sound, this person is physically sound, this person is mentally fit, and so on, to be able to use a firearm. Other than that, we know that that person must be trained and must be legally vetted and so on.
Limitation of these regulations?
The limitation is that instead of you using a rifle in a mall, there is a much less risky weapon to use, which is a handgun. And we've said handguns are default weapons. Handguns and what we call 12 gauge, your pump action, those are default weapons. Instead of you using a rubber bullet, for instance, we say the same firearm can be shot using a sandbag, which is much less lethal than a rubber bullet. Instead of using for instance, a sponge grenade, you can use something that is much less lethal than a sponge grenade. Instead of using a taser, for instance, you can use a pepper spray. Of course, looking at the chemical effect and impact of that pepper spray. So the use is really restricted to the nature of the use, the purpose for which it is used for, and the public interest, and of course protecting the public at the end. That's a very good question, because recently now, a few days ago, in Nelspruit in Ross, I think it is in the news, a well-known businessman in that area went to a restaurant with 12 bodyguards, a dog and his wife, to have dinner. They had kicked out every patron in that restaurant, and they had dinner. So do we need such things? Do you need to violate other people's rights for you to enjoy your own rights? Was there a need for you to walk in a restaurant with 12 bodyguards? What is the risk assessment that was done in that incident? Shouldn't you have called your own private chef, for instance, and have your dinner in a place where you're guarded by 30 people, instead of kicking out the rest of the public who also have similar rights, which are protected, by the way, in terms of the legislation. So that is why it is important for us always to default back to what are we regulating. We're regulating for the public interest and for the national interest, not for individuals.
Thank you.